The RTE Rugby Podcast, sponsored by Canterbury. See the new Irish men and women's rugby jerseys at canterbury.com.
So this week we have another special podcast for you. We're going all the way down to New Zealand to check in with a former Irish international, 4 Ireland caps, as well as more than 160 appearances and 8 major trophies for Leinster during his 9 seasons at the club in Dublin. I'm talking, of course, about Michael Bent. Michael, thanks a million for joining me this morning.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers for having me.
So settle a bit of research for me. Are you actually retired? Because we thought you were when you finished up with Leinster, and then we saw you popping up in the Taranaki jersey over the summer as well. And you seem to have played a few games there. Have you firmly packed in the boots? Was that just a nice little way to see things off and round off the career?
Yeah. This will be just the last hurrah sort of thing, really. It's a short season with Taranaki, and it's pretty well wrapped up now. So I'm just enjoying the last few games and running around, and I'll probably get involved with the club stuff here in Hara, but other than that, it'll be the end of it for me, I'd say.
And was it something you'd planned when you went back to New Zealand, or did the arm get twisted to come out and play a few more games?
I had asked and just sort of seen what the possibility was. I think I finished up on 48 games for Taranaki, so I was always kind of thinking I wanted to get back and just get to 50, which would just be 2 more. But it was just a bit of a process. It wasn't certain by any means. It was just talking to the coaches here and seeing where things were at, and then it all kind of fell into place. So I've just been enjoying playing a few more games with them, and things have been going well so far. So hopefully it carries on that way, and we can finish off strong.
And I imagine that was a very nice way or it has been a very nice way of just rounding the whole thing off for you in terms of a career.
Yeah. I couldn't have asked for a better sort of wrap up with Leinster, the way things went, and just a nice sort of, it's probably a little bit lower key playing at this level here, but it's still a good competition, and it's for me it's a good way to just finish up my career, is finishing off with them and just ticking that last little box that I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to achieve.
How long was the retirement plan in your head? Was it something that maybe you weren't thinking about too much, maybe until the second half of last season? Did you know going into last season this was going to be the last? How long was that process working out for you?
Well, it took, I suppose the year before I was kind of umming and ahhing, and like sort of every contract that comes along, I was sort of weighing up options and deciding what I wanted to do. But I suppose the year before I was starting to think it was nearing kind of that time, and then I signed on for one more, and I suppose I still felt a little bit undecided. I thought this would probably be my last season, but I still sort of had in my mind that we'll just see how I feel, see what comes up. But I ended up having a chat with Leo probably fairly on in the year, and at that stage I had made up my mind that it was probably going to be my last season. So and I said that to him then, and so he was well aware that that's where my head was at, and from that point on I was just enjoying the season and making the most of it.
What were the factors that would have come into it for you? Because, like we'll say, for the observer looking at it, you obviously didn't have any serious injuries that were troubling you. That wasn't a major factor to do with it. You were playing consistently. Did you feel, was it a case in training where you felt like you were having to kind of put in the 120% to keep up with everyone doing 100%, or did you just feel, you know what, it's nice to be able to actually go out while I'm still actually quite competitive?
It was more of a family sort of thing. Like I've got my little girl who's just turning 4 at the end of the month, and just had a little boy. He's 8 months now. So with the 2 of them, it was just sort of playing on my mind a bit that it would be good to get back to New Zealand and have them around grandparents. And that sort of thing. There was, yeah, like I was saying to you, each time I was thinking about contracts and thinking about extending and whatever, it was always a conversation with the family, because back here at home there's a family farm, and Dad's been taking care of it, and with a worker on as well. But yeah, it was just that sort of thing with yeah, the parents sort of wanting to take a step back, and yeah, it was more the timing for me to come in at that point and get involved with the farm. And so yeah, the longer I pushed that out, the harder it would be to kind of get in. So it was a bunch of different things, but yeah, it all just kind of felt like the right time. I was still enjoying the training and that side of it, but yeah, the way things finished up, I felt like I had a great season, and it was kind of quite good to finish on a high.
Yeah, it was. And like, you were probably, I don't want to say lucky, because you were unlucky in a sense that you didn't get a proper RDS send-off, but you did get some fans into the ground that day, which, you know, I'd say for
Yeah.
most of the season, you probably didn't think you were going to. It must have been nice to, God, at the very least, I don't know, was there a few hundred or maybe a couple of thousand people in the stadium that afternoon? Must have been nice to just kind of get that little bit of a tiny sense of normality before you signed off.
Yeah, like I said, it was all things considered, it couldn't have worked out better, really. It was yeah, our last game, and yeah, I think it was 1,300 that was able to be there that day. So it was yeah, it was just a pretty perfect send off. You know, if all things being if I could have had a fully packed RDS, that would have been the best send off, I suppose. But yeah, all things considered, we've been playing in front of empty stadiums for the entire season, and yeah, as it happened, we were able to get fans back in for that last one. So yeah, it just all finished up pretty perfect. I think we had towards the end there, we were allowing to have the squad members to come along to the games, and I remember those are like that. You know, you're going from a quiet stadium to just having the guys on the team. They're just sitting in the stands and cheering and yelling things, and that gave you just that little bit of a boost. So then to yeah, go back to having you know, 1,300 in the stand there, it was you know, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I remember thinking when the fans started coming back this year, I was most happy, to be honest, that I didn't have to hear James Lowe screaming for 80 minutes non-stop throughout every single game. It's funny,
yeah, I think
you could really pick out. Yeah, you can really pick out the individual players that were talking the most, and my God, he just would not stop for 80 minutes. I presume he probably is like that even when there are fans in the stadium as well. It's just drowned out. But on the pitch, you had a good season, 10 things as well. Like, you obviously got into the Pro 14 Dream Team. Was it nice to be able to finish up knowing that, you know, you were able to put in a pretty good season actually on the pitch, and, you know, you weren't overstaying your welcome in any way?
Oh yeah, it was it was amazing. Yeah, it was completely unexpected to make that team. Like, that was a pretty cool you know, bit of an honour to be named in that. And there was a couple of player of the months and things like that popped up there as well. And yeah, and you know, just the way things went, we playing really well and enjoying rugby, and yeah, it was just couldn't have asked for better, really.
And you were a hugely popular player by the time you finished up, and like, obviously it was quite a different reaction if you look back to when you arrived in Ireland, because, you know, the pressure was put on you straight away when you're thrown into the deep end, essentially off the plane into the international scene. Like, when you look back now as what kind of someone in your mid-20s coming across to the other side of the world, and you're thrown into the test scene, did you feel a huge amount of pressure at the time?
No, not really at the time. Like, I thought that I was at a good level, and I thought that you know, I could come over and play well and go all right. But yeah, I mean, I think it was probably the scrummaging initially for me that I struggled with a little bit, and you know, that as for a prop, that's pretty important. but yeah, I mean, I've learned a huge amount. Like I think I've developed hugely as a player in my time playing in Ireland, and so I think about for what I know now, and wishing I could have had some of that knowledge back then, and things could have been very different. But so it was a shame to that it was a bit of a rough start, but also it's I guess some guys they have a great career early on and then start to fizzle out. So no, I feel quite lucky to have finished playing good rugby and enjoying myself, and not just sort of fading away into the distance.
And when it's been announced that you're coming over to play for Leinster, and there's obviously a few months wait while you're finishing up your season in New Zealand. When you get the call that says you're actually going to come straight into the Irish squad, is part of you kind of going, oh, okay, let's roll with this? Or are you kind of thinking about it a lot? I imagine you just in that kind of mid-20s bracket of, you're obviously probably quite a confident professional player. You're kind of ready to take on any challenge, I imagine.
Yeah, well, when I was 26 at the time, and at that point I kind of felt like I was a little bit behind the game. Like these guys, 20-year-olds making the All Blacks and into playing international rugby, and so at 26, I thought I was easily old enough to be playing at that level and that. But all the same, it certainly came as a surprise, because it was I had in my mind I could come over and play at Leinster and maybe work my way into that. But to get that phone call and say that I'd be I still remember that well. It was Declan Kidney gave me a call, and he said, would you be interested in playing for Ireland? And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to play for Ireland. Obviously a little bit surprised by the phone call, but and even he knew that as well. He made a comment about assuring me it wasn't a prank call or something like that, and that he was serious. And so no, that was a pretty exciting moment, and playing my first cap and that, it was all very exciting, and I really enjoyed all that part of it. And I don't look back and wish it was different. I didn't feel like I was thrown into the deep end, but it just didn't pan out as well as I'd hoped, and initially, and then it was but I kept working hard and kept focused, and was pretty happy to be able to get back in 2015 and play another couple of caps. So
yeah, like absolutely. I'm sure that was like a big thing to kind of go out and work your way back into the squad. But at the time, like, I know we would have spoken to Jean Klein a week or so ago, and he was talking about how, when he got called up to the Ireland squad in 2019, there was a huge amount of criticism of it, and he was talking about how it actually kind of affected his performances, and he started to dislike rugby a little bit. Obviously, there was a bit of a circus around you being kind of brought straight in, and at the time there weren't a lot of people too pleased about it. Did that criticism affect you in any way? Were you hearing a lot of it, or were you just kind of parking the mind and tunnel vision, focus on your own gig?
It definitely affected me. I think there's I try not to look at it too much, but the odd time you pick up your phone and you'd just go in and see what is being said, and then when there's a bit of negative comments and so on there, and it might only be there might be a few that are okay with it than the ones that aren't. But you look at those comments and those you do start to wonder what everyone's thinking, and it can be a bit of a bad path to go down. But no, I definitely did think, because you start to overthink things, and I was thinking like I needed to correct this and correct that, and maybe the solution was a little bit more simple than what I was thinking for the way I was playing. But I think when I was playing my best rugby, it was when I kind of decided I had no pressure on me. There was and just to look for the ball and do whatever I saw fit in those moments. Whereas, early on I was, probably had a lot of just overthinking things and wanting to go out there and put in a good performance or the best possible performance. And sometimes what ended up happening was quite the opposite. So,
like every performance has to be the best. Every performance has to prove a point, and in the end, you can't keep doing that every single week. I imagine you're probably not playing. You're not playing the game you were playing maybe a year or so ago back in New Zealand, where you were just going out and okay, this week we're playing Team X, next week we're playing Team Y. It's just one game after another.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
As in, maybe were you kind of overthinking each game to make sure that you were kind of doing the absolute best, and was that kind of affecting the performances then?
Yeah. Well, 100%. It was. There's different aspects. You go out there thinking you're going to do so much with your carry, do so much with your defence, and then if you go out there and miss a tackle first up, and you feel like you're behind and you're trying to chase things, and then you end up making more mistakes. But I don't think that side of the game. I don't think it was that dramatically terrible, but it was. It just wasn't quite at the level I wanted it to be, and probably the level I needed it to be to push on and impress. Because by that stage, it was like you couldn't do anything right. That's that's kind of how I felt at a time there. It was like I feel like I go out and play reasonably well, but then there's it felt like there'd be people that it felt like the safe thing to do was to criticize me and give me a hard time. So early on, but that's and that that felt like that hung around for a number of years, which was disappointing. But towards the end there, it was I don't think there was too much negative stuff floating around. It was all very positive. So that was when contrast, that was a far better.
Absolutely. At what point on the pitch did you feel things started to take a turn for the better and you started to move? I know obviously we'll get to 2015 when you actually get some more Irish caps, but at what point between kind of 2013 and 2015 did you feel that, okay, things are really kind of moving now, you're into the groove and into the consistency?
It was probably even after that 2015, because at that point, up until that point, I was still trying to play both sides of the scrum. Because for that World Cup, I thought I was put myself in there as the guy that could play both sides, and I thought that being able to play that role would get me that spot. But when that didn't work out that way, I thought, well, what's the point in covering both? Because it is quite hard to do that, to cover both sides, and you end up being okay, but you're not really nailing your role, because you've got sort of opposing things in your head, and you're not really perfecting either. So I think when I decided to just stick to tighthead and just concentrate on that and really work on that and get that exactly right, is when things started to go better for me. And I mean, that was probably another season or so before I really got my scrummaging perfect on the tighthead side, and started going well after that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to ask which did you prefer, and how you kind of ended up doing both and then going back to tighthead, because I was looking through it and you probably would have ended up playing a lot more at loosehead than in my head I probably would have realized. Like, I actually started even counting up individual games over the course of a few seasons, and it was between the kind of 2013-14 through to the 2015-16 season. Like, you played most of your rugby. I think it was probably about 3/4 of the games for Leinster at the very least ended up being at loosehead. And then it was pretty much from that 26 to somewhere 2016, it's back to tighthead. And I don't think you left that either the 3 or 18 jersey. until you finished up with Leinster. You probably kind of half answered it there, but was it something that you specifically wanted to get back to doing, or was it kind of floated to you by, by coaches at the time that they wanted you to focus on one more than the other?
No, I think it was more something that I drove myself, because, and it might have been as well that there was a couple of good young Lucids that were coming through, and there was probably not as many tightheads, so it was that situation might have been easier just to stick to that side as well, so there might not have been as much of a push, because I think there's guys like Peter Dooley and Ed Byrne and that coming through, so the numbers for Lucid was pretty good. So but yeah, no, I did come over as a tighthead, and that was my plan to kind of stick there, but I had been chopping and changing between loose and tight, and at the time I was happy to do so as well. Like, I enjoyed playing both, and but what ended up happening was moving into the that 13-14 season, we were doing some preseason training and stuff. I ended up getting kind of closed down on my neck, and I lost a lot of strength down my right hand side. So for a tighthead, when you're that right hand side, you need to be very strong with your bind and everything. So I'd lost a lot of that. So then there's the idea was move across to lucid, because then I've got that strength in my left arm for the binding and so on. Just sort of while that was coming right, but I put in some good performances at lucid, and like you said, ended up playing a lot of rugby there.
And was there ever a point where you thought, I might actually just stick here at loosehead, or did you always want to eventually go back to tighthead?
Yeah, I always had it in my mind I wanted to play tighthead. It was and I suppose, at the time I was a better lucids, better scrummager at lucid, but even I suppose once my arm started to come right, then I did start chopping and changing a bit and going between the two, particularly in training. I'd do move a bit between the two in training a lot, and probably played a good bit more at lucid, but I think I did want to play both, and it was probably up until after that 2015 point that I decided that playing both wasn't really serving me very well, and I'd be better off just sticking to one, and that was going to be easier for me, clear my head from a bit of clutter, and probably make me a better player.
When you say clear your head of a bit of clutter, like, is that just kind of having the thought process of two very technical positions going on at the same time?
Yeah, well, as soon as you change over, you're kind of effectively doing the opposite of what you were doing on the other side. But it's not only that; it's the plays that you've got to be aware of, and a lot of guys do, cover different positions and have all the different roles in their head of what they've got to do in those different positions. But that is part of the clutter with lucid and tighthead. You're doing different roles in the lineouts and different roles when you're running through a play, so sticking to one is you've got less to think about.
And have you been giving Key and Healy tips over the last few months at all? How have you seen much of their experiment with Healy back over at tighthead, and now back at loosehead actually as well for the last couple of weeks? So he's doing what you were doing. He's going back and forth. Have you told him that don't get too high on yourself? You were the pioneer on this. You were doing this a few years ago before it was popular.
No, well, I haven't given him any tips at all, but I have been having a look, and in fairness to him, he hasn't. He never did. I don't think he was ever at tighthead in training in the years that I've been there, and credit to him, because he pretty much coming out and he's destroying at tighthead. So I think it's been a bit of a success as far as putting him across there, but I'd actually wouldn't mind seeing a bit more of him there, but that's probably,
and I'm sure how much. Yeah, and I'm sure we will over the course of the season. I think even Leo Cullen himself actually said that Healy volunteered to do it. They were looking for someone over the summer to to fill in a little bit throughout the season. And, you know, at the ripe old age of 33, 34, he put his hand up for it. But is it something we might see a little bit more of just in general over the next few years? Because probably in the last 10 years, it became so specialized where there was essentially nobody at the professional level that was, you know, playing tight hand, loose head on a regular basis. It was one or the other. And are we kind of getting back to the stage now where we are seeing a few more? Like we have this at Leinster. It was fairly obvious during the Lions tour during the summer as well, where South Africa, Trevor Nyakanya come on and absolutely destroy players one week at loose head, and then the following week he comes off the bench at tight head and he was unbelievable as well. Is it something that we might actually see a little bit more of going down the line, just to be a point of difference for a few more players?
I don't know. I don't really think it's necessary, because you've got in the past it was quite an advantage if you could do that, because you could only have one prop on the bench. So if you were a guy that were good at both sides, then you know, you're pretty valuable. Whereas now you can carry two props on the bench, so there's not as much of a need for it. But I mean, it certainly fixes a few headaches for a coach if he's got a guy that can go between the two. So yeah, I don't really think it's necessary, but you know, a handy thing for a guy to have up his sleeve if he can do it. But like I said, if for a younger guy, it's tough to do. A guy like you know, Church, he's, you know, pretty seasoned professional, so he's and you know, he's a very good scrummager, so he probably has a lot of, he knows exactly what he's trying to do to a tight head to upset him. So then when he comes across the tight head, he knows what he's going to do to counter it. But yeah, for the most part, it just looks to me like he's just using brute strength and just extending his legs and powering through the opposition scrum. So that seems to be working quite well.
Yeah, I think that's probably the say. If in doubt, just use your power and go for it. Is probably the safe way of doing it. Like
Yeah.
when you were playing, and as you said, you wanted to kind of get back to tight head. Was there, like, did you just feel more comfortable in that position? Did you feel maybe it was that when you were at your best at loose head and your best at tight head, you were better as a tight head? Was that the kind of logic of it?
I don't know. It was just something that, I guess, just a challenge for me. It wasn't something that I quite nailed, and I really just wanted to do that. And yeah, like I said, at the time with Leinster, there was a good crop of loose head props coming through. So yeah, sticking to tight head, it was something that I wanted to do, and it was kind of, as far as the numbers in the squad worked out, it was better that way anyway. So. I think the odd opportunity came up where they were kind of looking if there was loose heads around, but I you know, I was kind of at the point where I said I wasn't particularly interested in going back to loose head if when that question was kind of floated to me. But you know, I guess push come to shove, like if the thing is to play rugby and you're going to do it in a position you don't particularly want to play, you're probably just going to jump in that position. But yeah, it was certainly my preference at that point to not be the guy who's continually trying to cover both, but just be good at that one side.
Speaking to you off air just before this, you spoke about, you know, you're back, you know, on the family farm and stuff like that. Is that where the future lies for you? It's not, you're not going to move into coaching or anything like that. The family farm is where the future lies.
Yeah, for the time being. Yeah, I'm back milking some cows, and I was doing a bit of drenching some calves today, and sort of there's a bit of some good physical work in that, and it's quite enjoyable. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. But like I said to you as well, I'd probably look to get involved with the local club here, and whether I play a bit or just I'd certainly be looking to help young props that are here, and offer some guidance to them if you know, because I'm sure I can add a bit in that department. And yeah, whether I pursue coaching or not is it all depends on that. I guess I'll take that as a sort of a tester, and if I enjoy that, and then I'll, if more things come along, I don't, like I said, I don't know if I'll necessarily pursue it, but if things head in that direction, then that could be good as well.
Yeah, and it's I heard you mention something along those lines in one of your kind of last media days with Leinster, where you spoke about how one of the things you enjoyed in the last few years was maybe when all those international players were away and you could have a bit of time with some of the younger props and kind of, give them the small little secrets and the small little details on improving the really fine parts of a scrum technique. It's always coming, like the front rows, particularly at professional level, there's a real cult kind of aspect about it with all these small little trade secrets and stuff like that, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, there's just there is a lot to know. There's because you can think you can have part of it, aspects of it correct and doing it quite well, but there's also there's a mindset that you need to have to be wanting to take guys on and that sort of thing as well. So it's there's a lot to think about, and like I think in my head, the easiest thing to do is whenever I'm coaching someone is to rather than to go out there and start telling them do this, do that, you ask them what they're struggling with, because there's so many aspects to it. So there's you need to kind of narrow it down and work on the little bits, and it can be a slow process to get it right, but it is quite satisfying as well to see a guy who's been struggling with something and offer him a few tips, and then he tries it and he says, oh that's a lot better, thanks a lot, sort of thing. So it's good to get that feedback from guys, and that sort of, well, as a player as well, that kind of reassures you that the way that you're thinking is correct when you offer something to someone and they use it and they agree that that's actually a far better way of operating. So it's good. So
all right, well, listen, Michael, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and the very best of luck with what's left of the rugby and getting back out on the pitch and working at the grassroots level again, and best of luck on the farm. Thanks a million for speaking to us this evening.
Yeah, no trouble. Thanks a lot.
The RTE Rugby Podcast, sponsored by Canterbury. See the new Irish men and women's rugby jerseys at canterbury.com.